You're listening to the Forest School podcast with Lewis Ames and Gemma Southerden.
Hello listeners, welcome to the podcast. We've been away for quite a long time, so it's good to be back, and we are here in the woods for this one, and we're talking all about Smart Moves, Why Learning is Not All in Your Head, a book, and Lewis has read it and he's going to talk to me about it. And just before I kind of summarise the directions our conversation went in, those of you who are listening who maybe have not done your Forest School Level 3 training yet, maybe you're thinking about it, maybe something you've always wanted to do, we are filling up our Forest School Level 3 training course. One of them's coming up in May half term, and we've got another one happening on Mondays from September. So if it's something that you're interested in, you can check out our website. We've got a specific website for the training course, which is myforestschooltraining.co.uk. It'd be lovely to meet some of you in the woods on that course if you're up for it. But anyway, in this podcast, in this book that Lewis has been reading, loads of information all about the physicality and the science behind like physical learning and development. So it goes from, we start by talking about academic development stemming from physical development. We talk about different senses, talking about a little bit about swinging, like that sounds dodgy. The physical sensation of swinging on a swing or in a tree, and what that's doing to the brain. We talk quite a lot about listening and whether listening means sitting still, and how listening is different for different people. We talk about skin growth, touch, rough and tumble play. We talk about storytelling, imagination and sensory learning. Even get on to electromagnetic fields and the heart, language acquisition, tone of voice and visual learning, internal monologues. We have a bit of a reflection about the purpose of the circle in Forest School, and why we might run circles, and even to the development of the eyes and the science and the biology of eye development. So you can see how massive this topic is. I feel like it might even deserve a podcast too at some point. Anyway, enjoy. And as always, if you want to reach out and write us a review, that's always really lovely to do. You can do that anywhere that you listen to our podcasts, either on Spotify or iTunes, and that's really good. Or even just a rating, that helps kind of share the podcast amongst other people. Or if you want to reach out and send us a message and let us know whether the podcast is kind of helping you in any way, or whether you've got a topic that you'd like us to talk about in future, that would be lovely. We love hearing from you guys. So yeah, enjoy.
Is that Ostara is also the festival, right?
Yes, there's actually not much written record about Ostara. It's not Celtic, it's Anglo-Saxon maybe, but there's not actually the word Ostara written anywhere, I don't think, in an old record. I think it's more of a Victorian historian person was like, I'm going to use the word Ostara, I'm translating this as Ostara type thing. So there's not that much actual old stuff. But Iostra is another word for the same goddess, same character, which is older.
Okay.
Have we started? Nice. Have you started recording?
Yeah.
Lovely.
It's been a while.
It's been too long.
It's been well. In fairness, we normally do this on a Friday, and you have been away on Fridays with our Level 3 students.
Yes.
You've been going and watching people do Forest School and
having a lovely, lovely time.
Yeah.
And leaving you to have a lovely, lovely time running our parent and toddler group. All by yourself. But then we normally do it after. Don't we?
But now we're back. We're back because we're getting ready for the next Level 3. And so, yeah, it's like the woods is. We said the other day, didn't we? This is like the most barren it looks because we've just had a storm. So everything's sort of shaken off a load of dead wood.
It doesn't look barren, it looks beautiful.
But like the greenery hasn't come in yet.
It's starting to. Look, the larch
I know
there.
The larch has got the stuff, yeah.
It's so nice.
But you know sometimes we turn up and we go, whoa, even though you go away for a weekend at some point in the spring and then you come back and it's like, particularly because the woods is a hill and down there we can see all the villages, and like at a certain point I feel like I just come in and it's like someone's drawn the curtains. Yeah. You just go, shunk, oh, there's leaves all in the way now.
There's no leaves, and I felt like I was getting a little bit sunburnt this week because the sun was so strong and there were no leaves in the way. That in the summer it's actually cooler here, isn't it? Cooler. I really decided I was going to say it like that instead of cooler. It's a lot cooler.
Oh, cooler.
It's a lot.
Where's that cooler to?
Oh, hello.
It is. Yeah, it is very warm. It is very warm, and like you say, it's the most that the sun can get in, so it's heating everything up. I feel like because we had such a week of like rain before this and storm.
That was a tough week.
Yeah, I feel like the woods had a big drink, and now it's just gone. You know that noise after a big like. Like when a toddler comes in from playing in the garden, they grab some squash.
When you say toddler, do you mean you?
Yes, I mean me. I mean someone with absolutely no introspection, and then they go, "I am the thirstiest person in the world. I must drink and eat everything."
And then wipe it all out your beard.
Well, sometimes. Does I deliver it?
Lovely.
Yeah. But we've both been doing some reading.
Yeah, you more than me.
Yes, for once. I am the one with a book. You just took a picture.
You have the knowledge.
You just took well, I won't go that far. You just took a picture of my book because I really enjoy reading books with these little, what do you call them, like sticky tabs? You can hear them.
Yeah.
These sticky tabs.
Listeners, there are about 35 little sticky tabs that Lewis is, but like this is the important page that I really want to talk about. This is also the important page that I really want to talk about. Basically every page is got a sticky tab.
Had it been a highlighter pen.
Strap in, it's going to be a long podcast.
You know, you would do that when you're studying for something, and you start highlighting, and you go, "Oh, when it gets to the end of
Schitt's Creek."
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it's
where
just highlighting
she goes
all
back
of
to
the
high
book.
School. Yeah.
Yes. So I have been reading Smart Moves: Why Learning is Not All in Your Head by Carla Hannaford, PhD. This is the second edition, revised and enlarged, which I know means she's added more stuff, but what it makes me think is they just made the book a bit bigger. This is a very small book. We should enlarge it. Yeah, I like the big book. It's great. It's a little bit old. Let me find the thing. So, 2005. But for the most part, this is copyright 2005, 1995.
Yep.
First one. So, you know, not the most up-to-date thing, but human biology isn't moving that fast, and this is quite a deep. It's quite deep in places. So I think looking at this book, I thought it was going to be a lot more like just like a surface level practical. This is why your kids need to move. This is whatever else. But it goes off into such like rabbit holes about like the inner ear stuff, or it goes off into rabbit holes about
juicy.
It is very juicy, and it does a good job of like it goes off into the weeds, and then just at the point where you're going, I can't deal with this. This is the mitochondria of the cell, and it pulls you back out and goes, so that's why we need slides.
Love it.
And it pulls you back out.
I love it.
But it is one of those books that offers some really interesting. You know, you read a book and you go, oh, this is stuff that I knew.
I was going to ask that.
But I didn't know why.
I was going to ask exactly that, because especially as the weather gets warmer and everyone like sheds layers of clothes, and I've been really interested. I think we both have, and that's probably why we ended up doing this topic of the podcast. But you really start looking at like learners' like physical activity and what their bodies are doing, and finding that really interesting. And you know, lots of like bouncing on the net we've had, lots of swing, lots of you know, free movement without worrying about like, getting too wet or whatever, and just seeing what people's bodies naturally want to do. And we even ran the circle today at Toddler Group as a kind of welcome circle. I was like, you know, how does your body like to move and why? Like, do you like climbing or jumping or sliding, whatever?
Can you hear that woodpecker? Look, he's just sat there. It's two of them. Ooh. Having a little chat with each other.
Wow.
You see it?
I saw it fly, yeah.
Oh, I'm really sorry that we've been distracted this early, but those woodpeckers are there, and I'm going to keep looking at them.
Amazing. So like, you know, and even adults, like, and it's so, I just find it so interesting. People going like, I really like swimming. I like the feel, not fast swimming, but like breaststroke. I love the feeling of that. And people go, I really like the feeling of like going downhill really fast.
That is a thing that I think our approach to forest school and the way we've set up our community, stuff that might seem like a very silly question on the face of it, I think we've got a really good, I'm patting ourselves on the back here, but like I think we've got a really good thing of like thinking about small questions. They're not small, but like thinking about it earnestly in a way that like you might, because you can, how do you like to move your body? You could be very dismissive of that in the same way that like when children are like, what's your favourite colour? Like, what do you like doing? I like running. I like but actually we didn't. We had a whole group and we all sat around, and you and me included, kind of really thought for a minute, and we're like, actually that's the sensation I get the most out of. And sometimes I hope that we've just like planted a seed.
I was going to say the same thing.
That this carries on.
Yeah.
And when people take it away and they go home today and they go, maybe I should do that thing today. Maybe I'm going to run down that hill. Maybe I'm going to...
Exactly. And that you don't grow out of it, that you still need it. And yeah, so we're kind of interested in like observing it. And then, as you say, you get that instinct, that feeling of like, I know this is really positive. I know that giving the opportunity for bouncing around on the net or going on the swing for as long as somebody wants to, I know that that is really valuable. But could I really explain why? You know, especially if you were kind of arguing for it. If you were in a school setting, for example, going, well, you know, you've got somebody who's really focused on like reading levels, writing levels, you know, all the kind of academic stuff. And if you were having to kind of really back up yourself and go, no, it is actually as important as doing some of the learning that somebody might be worried that a child was, you know, catching up with or whatever. Like, what is behind it? So that's cool.
Yeah.
So tell us.
Well, actually, you've reminded me of something which I've discovered is a pet peeve of mine, and now that I've seen it, I see it in a lot of books actually, and I've realised that this is something's been grating me for a little while, which is we have a thing in like alternative education where lots of people are like, you know, we should be less focused on academic pursuits. That's kind of a vibe that lots of people have. We should be more focused on holistic stuff. And you know, forest school, one of the main things about forest schools, it's great and it gives people a chance to shine away from people who might not be academically strong, can be strong in other ways, in other scenarios. But if you read a lot of literature about this stuff, and this book included, it talks about like how amazing it is to learn something vestibular, like the sense of balance that you gain, and the da-da-da-da-da. And it's amazing and amazing and amazing. And the last bit is always then, which is obviously great for writing, because then they do, and it's like, it just feels undercut. It feels like you're going, which obviously isn't valuable in its own, so let me relate it back to academics, because that's the vibe that we all are apparently going for. And like that commodification of physical learning is only beneficial because it helps academic learning, rather than physical learning is beneficial because you have physically learned to do something. It is valuable in its own right. That's my little bugbear now.
Yes.
And I see that all the time. And that's
interesting.
Again, it's one of those things like, because I know sometimes it's like, oh, you grease the wheels of whatever needs are in front of you. And so a lot of people are in that position where, and we've been in that position where you go, how do I sell forest school to a school? Their needs are academic, therefore I will talk about this in an academic sense.
Yeah, or if you're talking about your own kids or kids that you're working with, they are in the school, you know, they may be in the school system, and you can't
completely turn your back on it and go pretend it doesn't exist and shut your eyes.
Be that if it is true that it does develop reading skills or help with, you know, crossing the midline, helping writing, all that kind of shimmer, then you kind of can still address it and go, well, my child or this child is struggling in inverted commas, developing at a slower rate in inverted commas, all those kind of things with those skills, and maybe is not feeling great about themselves because of that, and you have to kind of acknowledge that that is the world that we're in, and therefore maybe you do want to really focus on this stuff and put it foremost. I don't know, just as a kind of but I completely get what you mean, that like if you it's not holistic, is it, to go, the only reason that this like physical stuff has
that's what it is. It's faux holisticism in that it's like, if this, we should do a broad range of things because it benefits this narrow thing. That's what it is. You've summed that up for me very well. Besides our normal 5 senses, we tend to think that we have Rivlin and Graval have discovered 14 other senses that we have known receptor sites for, such as change in magnetic orientation, atmospheric pressure, airborne ionic changes, UV, sense of wet and dry, etc. Sense of wet and dry is not one I've come across before, which is just very interesting. A sense of UV, stuff like this is just crazy. I'm going to so I think what we can do is I'll flick through this book and I'll kind of go, here's the thing, if it sparks something, it sparks something. This is a really good example that I've for children that have a vestibular need for balance in a classroom, and it just relates it back and says, can you read a book in the car? Because they're in a car right now. That sense of like, I get motion sickness in the car because my eyes can't relate to what my ears are telling me.
Yeah.
And they're like, that's what kids are doing.
That's
when
really
they're trying to
interesting, because I
balance.
was reading an article which said some similar things. I'm just going to find the name of the article. So it's from playgroundprofessionals.com and Play and Playground e-magazine, and the article's called "So What's the Big Deal About Swinging?" And it talks about a little bit, I think not as deep a dive as your book, but a bit about why swinging is enjoyable and beneficial and all the rest of it. And it takes it back, this theory is taking it back to our ancestors, our primate ancestors, who are swinging in the tops of trees and jumping and swinging and all that kind of thing. And the theory is that this swinging action stimulated the cerebellum and fires up connections in the prefrontal cortex. So the swinging stuff physically is firing up that bit of your brain, and that bit of your brain is working on language, planning, all of those things that you need in order to progress that sort of side of learning. So that's really interesting that there's a kind of crossover there.
Oh, definitely.
And I never really thought about it like that the physical movement is firing up a bit of your brain.
There's a really good example towards the end of this book, so I can't find it now, but the example they give is sit still and listen, and a learner going, which one? Because I cannot do both those things. I can sit still and focus all my attention on sitting still, or I can move and listen.
Completely.
So that example to me, like sit still and listen, it's said by let's not pretend that I've never said that. We say it because what we're actually trying to say is like, can you do the best listening possible? Or like, can you stop being a distraction?
Or can you do the type of listening that I, in my adult, not even I, but the way that society, a neurotypical society, has decided is good listening. So I was reading stuff recently about for lots of people actually sitting still means they cannot listen, a bit like you're saying. So it's just a very narrow view of what we think listening looks like quiet hands sitting on your bottom looking at the person who's speaking. Like, who decided that and when that is what listening looks like?
Well, I think that is a byproduct of what I think is a very Western way of looking at education, and like we have to drill this down to the smallest finite, like to the atom, to the whatever there. And if you want to look at stuff holistically, you would be like, listening is better in the round. Listening is better when it's combined with painting, when it's combined with swinging, when it's combined with whatever. But the view of like, listening should be your primary focus, therefore it's best if you only do one thing. Like children that, process emotions by singing, or like by, they're doing other things to kind of go, yep, I'm doing all of this in the round.
I'd love to know if there is an education system somewhere that really actually addresses that and goes, we have a different view of what listening looks like, and doesn't have that like listening means sitting still. Because the stuff I was reading was like, for some people, you're only able to listen when you're really moving your body, like really like rocking, walking around, pacing, whatever. So, and not looking, literally like looking the opposite way to the person who's speaking. Because watching the facial expressions, watching the mouth moving means that I can't listen, because there's part of my brain that's really focused on watching your face, and actually I need to not be looking at your face. I need to look at something else completely non-human, and I need to be moving, and therefore the words can enter my brain and get into the bit of my brain which can actually properly listen to you. And obviously that's not acceptable in most classrooms. I'd love to know if it was acceptable somewhere. The woodpecker's on the bird feeder now. Cheeky little thing. And what was I going to say? So then it's really interesting to look at yourself and look at other adults or older children, I think, because you have it drummed into you, we have it drummed into us that good listening is sitting still, whatever. So then you look at those people who
bottoms on chairs,
who sit there with a leg just jiggling, or someone who sits there doodling,
Yeah.
because that is I can't listen by sitting still. I need to be moving. That's not acceptable. I will condense it down and condense it down and condense it down into the most socially acceptable way of not sitting still, whether that be doodling, jiggling a leg, fiddling with a fiddle toy, all those, those things of like just shrinking it. And it's like shrinking a part of yourself to fit in, obviously we're all doing that all the time. We've all got to kind of learn these filters, haven't we, in whatever way. Well, we haven't got to. Why do I say that? It's just how way society is. But anyway, I find that interesting. Carry on.
Okay, here's an interesting one for you. I'm going to read a short paragraph. I apologise. Recent findings indicate that parent-offspring interactions that included a lot of touch, play, and being fully present may be crucial for cognitive development. No shit. That's not in the book. The touch of closely bonded family members increases activity in the hippocampus, an important centre for spatial and general learning and memory. Now so that's interesting. Here's the really interesting bit. Adolescence can be a strange time when the child is growing a greater skin surface. Right? They're shooting up, yeah? And is more sensitive to light touch, since those receptors take longer to develop. So as your skin is massively growing, because you're shooting up because you're a teenager, the first ones that grow are the rough touch receptors, and after that grow the light receptors. So then it says, if we lightly touch our teenagers, they may be overly sensitive and move away with disgust. Parents are well advised to give their children of that age bear hugs with strong touch or rough and tumble play, so they feel the perimeters of their body. This helps to stimulate the growth of all touch receptors in their new skin, makes them less sensitive to our light touch. Panksepp discovered that rough and tumble play was the most effective way of stopping hyperactive behaviour in adolescence. Even adult learning difficulties and susceptibility to disease are associated with lack of early touch. That's an example of how deep this book is, right? That's one paragraph, and there's 5 ideas in there that I want to go,
Yeah.
But, so the most important one for me there is the light touch. And thinking about, this is obviously saying adolescence, right? But also thinking about children at any age going through a growth spurt and going, when they grow, they're going to be more sensitive to light touch. And that lens changes the way I look at interaction, and changes the way that, like, I think now having my own kids who are going through growth spurts at different times, and there are times where they're very cuddly and times where they're like, you need to absolutely squeeze me, and I don't like it if you just touch my hand. They need to pull away. But there'll be people working with teenage groups for whom I think that's a very interesting one, especially when you look at something like adolescence, like a lot of stuff I've seen around regulation, regulating oneself is light touch, is stroking or gently touch, like if you need to console, like the go-to consoling someone is like a hand on the shoulder, stroking hair or whatever else, but like being like, that might be the worst possible thing for right now.
And it's interesting to think about how little adolescent children might get the opportunity to do rough and tumble play. And I've read another article about looking at addressing outdoor space design for girls,
right, in
exactly this way. So you might go, right, rough and tumble play, really physical play with like strong touching. That sounds dodgy, but you know what I mean. Kind of popular and acceptable ways to do that when you're a teenager are football, rugby, basketball, those kind of things that you might see at playtime in a school.
Right.
Mostly it's boys doing those things for whatever reason. Obviously it's not all the time, but that's the kind of social norm. And so how are those girls going to get that experience? And so the article I was reading, it's called Make Space for Girls. I wonder if I can tell you guys a bit more about it. It is a website, called makespaceforgirls.co.uk, and they're doing loads of research with women and girls, and looking at children's preferences and the time they spend in playgrounds and communal outdoor spaces, and then looking at how we design those to make them more acceptable for girls, because they're being used a lot by boys. The finding is happening in the UK anyway. It's the research is finding, and that's really interesting that you're thinking about. If you're saying that's how you're developing those things, what are we providing for girls so that they can also get that feedback and that development opportunity? I find that interesting. And Forest School is like, especially with older groups, the practitioners that I know anyway, with the older groups, saying there's a lot of really physical play, a lot of real rough and tumble play, and that maybe that's one of the very few spaces they have where they can do that. There's a squirrel there. Brambles, very close, very brave. Go on then, you got another bit?
Got another bit. Oh, okay. So this was one of those ones where it was like, oh yeah, okay, I understand that. I know that scenario, and now I understand the thing. Okay, I'll go back a little bit. Limbic system connections elaborate. All of the elements come into place for the development of our imagination. Imagination will naturally spring from the sensory motor patterning in the relationship with emotion and memory. This is a process you can actually see unfolding if you observe how children respond when you read to them. As they concentrate on listening to you read to them, they are absolutely quiet. In their brains, they are elaborating internal pictures and emotions connected to their already acquired understanding. We know this. They are actively forming new neural networks. Yep. When you have finished reading the book, the child immediately says, "Read it again, and again, and again." The repetition allows them to elaborate and myeliniate the new nerve paths. So they're just laying down more and more neurons, connecting emotions to thoughts, to imagination things. If you happen to say the wrong word as you're reading, they will let you know, which is the thing I know. This consistency is important to the integrity of their imaginative pictures. They will tell you the story. They will then tell you the story to embody it in movement and sensation through speech. Finally, they will play act it. The physical play gives them the sensory understanding of the concepts and anchors that puts all the parts together.
We've seen that here.
We've seen that here. And so that is so I really love that in terms of, because this is talking about, you're reading a book, they're internalizing it, they're doing some imagination, they're making this like imaginative world in their head, and then they need to go, oh, this imaginative world in my head doesn't have any sensory components, therefore I need to play physically so that I can fill in that imaginary world with sensory. Like they're listening to a story about somebody, like a princess in a castle and she's being stolen, for example, right? And so they can imagine the tower, they can imagine what the princess is wearing, and then you get that, and they can see the picture, and then they go, I don't know how that princess feels when she gets picked up. I don't know how it feels when someone runs away. I know I'm going to play it so that someone can, so that my dad or my mum can pick me up, and that will then feed into my imagination. Now it's got a sensory component. Now it's got which that just makes so much more. That's one of those ones where I was like, yeah, I've definitely read books to my kids and missed a word, said a different word. No, he gambled along. He didn't run, he gambled. Like, oh, okay, it's deeply important to you that the right verbs, that the right,
That makes me think of one, I can't remember what the story was now, but I think you told a story in parts through the day. So we might tell stories at different times if we've got like an all-day
I did
session.
the Firebird.
Was it the
I
Firebird?
did the Firebird recently in parts through the day, because you said you'd never heard the end of it, because I never. It's quite a long one.
Yeah, it probably was that.
Anyway, sorry.
But sometimes we might tell the story like at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Before home time, and this time you told it in parts through the day, and it inspired a lot of play, and it really made me think, like, are we missing a trick sometimes by telling a story at the end of the day, because then it's home time then, and you don't necessarily have that time to play it out if they want to, like they might not want to, but you're providing more opportunity to do that if you're telling it at break time or lunchtime.
Well, we sometimes will intentionally put a story earlier on when we as a springboard to go, I think this is going to lead into some play here, therefore I will put that story earlier in the day. And actually I do think that that's one of the things that is really helpful for bonding a group, is like getting a story in early then means you've got a shared experience that you go, why don't we all lay down more imaginative worlds around this, imaginative information. When you, excuse me, when you, if you don't have a story, then I think that is one of the times where you go, oh, you've arrived with this story you need to play out, you've arrived with this story you need to play out, and you've arrived with the news, and you all need to play this out, but you haven't, and this is clashing with this, and this is, and like, yeah, sometimes that is a bonding experience for a group to go.
Definitely. Or and a scaffold for somebody who might not have necessarily a social bond already there, or might not have an idea about what they want to do, and you've given them that kind of framework that they can then go, oh, we'll take this and run with it, and it might go off in a different idea, in a different direction.
Yeah. So I'm reading this bit here, which is about smart moves. I don't know if you've come across smart moves.
No.
Wait. Oh yeah, Smart Moves is the book, so you have come across that.
Okay.
This talks a lot about brain gym.
Okay.
You know that thing? Cross-lateral movements and all those things.
Crossing the midline.
Yeah, it's got all those exercises in this book. It's got some really good ones.
Is that the one you were doing with the group the other day, where you're drawing a figure 8 in front of
infinity
your
sign? Yeah. So there's stuff like that.
eyes.
And that was a really good example of that bugbear, because they were taught, each of these little activities has a, so this one is like drawing the infinity sign in front of your eyes, and it crosses in front of your eyes, and it syncs your left brain and right brain together, it syncs your eyes together, it helps you with your balance, it does all this stuff, which means that you can write in a more construed. And I was like, you've just undercut it at that last minute. Here's an interesting one.
It's because you hate writing and learning of all kinds.
No, I don't. I just.
Of course not. I'm winding you up. Pens? They should be illegal. What? They're just talking about pens.
All right.
No charcoal here, because you might start writing with it. And I'm teasing you.
Is that Mark making, boy?
How dare you? Stop jumping around, pretending to be I don't know, kangaroo.
Okay. Also, as measured by a SQUID, superconducting quantum interface device. Squids.
Oh, sorry.
Superconducting quantum interface device.
Not the animal.
Not
squid.
the animal. The heart generates. This is an example of how deep this book is.
Yes.
The heart generates an electromagnetic field that is at least 1,000 times greater than the field produced by the brain. Okay. And extends a measurable distance of 8 to 16 feet from the body.
Oh my God.
Since our heart fields overlap within 8 to 16 feet of each other, I feel the saying, come from your heart, is intrinsically relevant in being with, teaching and parenting the people in our lives.
Oh my Lord.
So our hearts are feeling electromagnetic fields when we are close enough to overlap.
Wow.
Which is just a really interesting thought about proximity, and we've just been through a period of history where we were away from each other, and what effects that's going to have. And also, one of the things that is worth bearing in mind for children who are very young at the moment and will have missed out on that experience, one of their senses is going to be electromagnetic fields. We all have it. And so they might not have been to a toddler group. They might not have been to preschool yet. They might have not have been, they might not have seen Nanny and Grandad for ages. So just the feeling of like, there's people near me. There's people near me and I can feel that in my body. Might be super sensitive to some children.
Is that then, like when you can feel vibes from a person and you can feel it, and it's not like, how someone's feeling. So say you're feeling pretty chilled, but then somebody near you is suddenly very anxious. Yeah. And obviously you can look at their facial expression, you can hear their breathing, and you can listen to what they're saying or whatever. But you can also feel it. You can feel it in your body.
Mm-hmm.
Is that their heart's electromagnetic field? Is it that their heart is beating in a different rhythm? I know that your heartbeat does synchronise. If you hear a heartbeat or you feel a heartbeat,
that's how rave music works, isn't it? 120 beats a minute is like human excitement.
Apparently, you can play a heartbeat noise for long enough.
Everybody listening.
That's the worst.
Somebody said the
Just
other day,
break
my
beat,
favourite
please,
bit.
at least.
We've done 100 and whatever we've done of these, and somebody the other day said, "Do you know what my favourite bit was when Gemma played the happy hardcore?" And
Do you want some right now?
just no, we really
Oh, go
don't.
on.
No, please don't.
It'll ruin
Please
the vibe,
don't.
won't it?
Yeah, please don't.
Maybe I'll do it in the outro. Because
That's easier for me to cut.
end user is now on Spotify, and he didn't
Stop.
used to be. There he is. Look, twiddling his knobs. I'll play you some on the way out. You'll
cut
love
it.
it. No, don't you dare! Don't you dare cut it.
Right.
It's really good.
Here we go. Here we go. This is a good one. This is
Okay,
a good one.
go for it.
Language acquisition.
Right.
Super cool one. Right. Okay. In order to learn to speak accurately, we must be able to hear the full tone, including the higher harmonics that occur in normal speech.
Right.
Right? Some people won't know what harmonics are, like the resonances, the frequencies, these things. This only occurs when children are directly communicated with, because TVs, computers, I don't know how old this book is, TVs, computers, tapes and CDs are digitized, which means compressed, so parts of the harmonics and overtones are lost. So you're not getting the full spectrum when you listen to stuff. Often including the consonants that help to define language. Your T's, your P, all that. We put a pop shield on these microphones because we don't want to get
Plosives.
So that's all getting cut out. Often the consonants which help to define language. If the child does not hear the analog sound of another real human voice, he can't speak or later symbolize it to read. So this idea that, like, if you don't hear the t's and the, so I don't think you mind me saying, my son at the moment, he does not have a th sound. He doesn't have a th, and when he's talking, he goes, "Did you know at when we're going?" Because it just flows out, right? And he can't, because he can't see it. He can't say it. Sorry. He can read some words now. He cannot read a th sound. He cannot internalize it because he can't say it. And because he doesn't say it, he doesn't. He's not. It's like, hey, look, this is the symbol for that sound, and he's like, that's not a sound. He doesn't say that, but that's an example of what I mean. So this is one for you're thinking about children with language and communication and language delays or difficulties, and thinking about, are we able to give them all of the information needed? Is this somebody that's getting a lot of their language exposure through speakers, which are going to cut stuff out? Is this someone who, one of the reasons, so we've worked with a child before who has two hearing aids, which is a tiny speaker, which means that it's all getting clipped, it's getting the same thing. So someone with a speech and language delay with two things is only getting, they're not getting the full tone. They're at a double disadvantage in terms of picking up language.
Another argument for storytelling, isn't it?
Another argument for storytelling. Yeah. Parents... I just liked this paragraph. Parents should be aware that prior to age 4, even though language is progressing, the child is taking most of its behavioural cues from what it sees, not from spoken commands. It's prior to 4. The parent may have told the child not to do something, but the physical stimulation is so compelling that the sensory fascination overrides the verbal command. The child may even be able to tell the parent what it was told not to do, but without full comprehension of the meaning. Which is that thing of like, what did I say? You said don't touch it. What did you do? I touched it.
Some people don't lose that. It may be me.
Gemma
Stop
takes
doing
most
that.
of her behavioural cues from what she sees, not spoken commands.
Or just things one likes doing because they feel nice are more important than whether the other person likes it or not.
But that is really. But okay,
Oh my god.
this is. But this is interesting to me.
My family have like stories of like me being really quite grown up.
It's not just your family. We all have them.
Going like, I've just painted that door, don't touch it. I mean, just looking at my dad in the eye and just touching the door and him going, are you mental? I'm literally, I know, yeah. You've got painty hands now? Yeah. Do it again. I love it. Do it, sorry.
But it's another example, isn't it, of like, I think we need to be more careful around, lots of us will have that view of like, as long as I've explained the risk, and I sometimes hold this view, I've explained to the risks to them, so there's nothing more I can do. If you now choose to do it, that's your own thing. But actually, I need to kind of park that for a minute and go, I have explained it, but I've only explained it verbally.
Yeah.
And that person might not be processing verbally right now.
But they might look to you like they are. But do you know what is really interesting? A lot of the times where things like that happen, and then you can go, are you going to do it again? And often they'll say yes.
Yeah.
So then you go,
I'm gonna do
okay,
that
cool,
again.
I'm going to put this away now.
Yeah.
It can come out later, like, I can't let you do that because it's not safe. I'm going to put the fire out now. I'm going to take away that sharp thing.
Yeah.
And I find that amazing that they are honest, that, you know, you can have that whole, like you just said, that conversation about, we won't do that because this might happen. Can I just check you've understood that? Oh, yeah, you know, you just said it back to me in your own way or whatever. Oh, you're still doing it. Are you going to do it again? Yes. Okay, fine. We can't, I can't let you push that small child over anymore. We're going to go play over here.
Well, that links to this next bit. Oh, there's a money spider on me. I'm rich, money spider. Once speech is in place, the child will process thought throughout a speech until about 7. I distinctly remember ages 4, 5 and 6 as being very verbal times for my daughter. I got to the point where I would cringe every time I heard "Mummy, what?" or "Mummy, how?" or "Mummy, why?" And I found myself looking for a moment of quiet so I could think. My child may talk continuously as she discusses her world and all of the new relational insights she is gaining. Oh my God, I am fully in this. You know that when you are a fire truck, you have got wheels. Yep. Thanks, mate.
What's that comedian? What's her name? Sindhu V.
Sindhu V.
Everything they tell you, you already know. That's why it's so boring being a parent. Yeah.
Stream of consciousness. Stream of consciousness speech is the problem-solving tool of the 4 to 6-year-old, and why becomes the generator of that process. This stream of consciousness speech, in varying degrees, is essential to language and other thought development. Inner speech development doesn't normally occur until around age 7, so children literally think out loud. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that children of this age wonder if adults even think because we are so quiet. That was an interesting flip round for me to just go like... So that is something that you and I have talked about in a podcast ages ago. We talked about not giving people the answer to stuff. Yeah. And we talked about, and I couldn't remember the name of it, and going, if I was wondering what bird that was, I'd be looking to see... Pole bridging, okay. Yeah, we did talk about that. But we also talked about it in a different one.
About questions.
Questions.
Yes.
And we talked about not giving the answers and then not giving it as what do you think it is?
Oh yeah.
Because that also isn't helpful. And this example here of them wondering if adults ever think is a really good way where you can sort of show that, modelling it. This is my thought process, but going, I'm wondering if it's... Because... I'm wondering if... I always think of birds of prey. I'm wondering if it's got a neck. I'm wondering if its tail feathers splay out. I'm looking to see if it is doing circles, all this stuff. Which doesn't sound different, but is very different to asking, has it got a neck? Has it got splayed tail feathers? Because then you're presenting different information. You're kind of going... This isn't a quiz for you right now. There's no... I don't need to put you on the spot about this thing. I just thought that's really interesting. And also, that idea of children thinking out loud is really interesting in terms of encouraging, we've all been in that situation where you go around the circle and you say, tell me something about, let's go around the circle and let's say our favourite animal. And you get round to, you get 2 people in, and then you want to give that person space. And you go, okay, what's your favourite animal, little Johnny? When we went to the dog, and then and you can see, and you're in their head, you're going, mate, number 48 in this queue, he's not got the attention to hold it, and you're sucking. I've got to do this, and now I'm in a position where I've got to ask these people if they could stop chatting. But really, I want to be like, yeah, fair enough, because you are telling a dog shit story, right? But that thing of going, this is your internal monologue. I don't want to cut it off because you're doing some important thinking. Yeah. How important is it? So this changes my thinking then to how important is it that children listen to each other around the circle? That thing of they always talk over each other. I'm like, yeah, because it's internal. This is internal train of consciousness, whatever the phrase is, stuff. So actually, it's not huge. And sometimes it's important to model it and go, let's listen to this person because it's all valuable. We all need to. And sometimes you want to go, they're rattling on.
Yeah.
That's fine. They're in their own head. And maybe, this is an on-the-spot idea, maybe the thing is like, oh, that's great. Do you want to keep telling person next to you about that while we carry on? And then it's like the opposite of like setting up an intentional like other discussion to help the group move on.
Yeah.
I go, you need to talk more, not in these words, but like going, you've still got a lot more to come out of your head. Why don't you tell that person and we'll carry on?
Yeah, it's very interesting then because you start asking a massive question about what is the circle for? Like why, obviously sometimes circle is like conflict resolution or like learning or whatever. But, oh, someone's making a big noise. I think it's squirrels. Like with those things of like we're going to share how we're feeling or we're going to share we're just going to have like a group discussion about something, or like the one we had today about like what's your favorite way of moving your body. Like why are you actually doing it? Is it so that, especially when you're just doing it just with children, are you doing it because you as a practitioner genuinely want to find out something, so, or you want the group to find out something, like how are you feeling? We often say this is really useful to actually make sure that you are listening to each other, because somebody might say, I'm actually feeling really upset right now because blah blah blah, or I'm feeling really tired, and then that will help us to, it will inform how we approach that person, and therefore it's really valuable that we know those things. Or is it just that it's nice to talk to each other, and it is, or is it for the group? Is it actually nothing to do with like hearing what's being said? Is it just about the talking and about the sharing and about just chucking something in the pot, even if it is a random story about your nan, when that was nothing to do with what the question was?
Yes, and I think what I am feeling more and more is that my mistake in the past has been thinking that the circle has the same purpose every time.
Yeah.
And actually, I need to park that, because in the same way that I would go, it's not a stick every time. Okay, the swing is not just, a horse every time. The circle is not the circle every time. And I think the circle is almost a chance to find out what do they need from this circle. And that is equally as true with adults. When you meet with adults, sometimes you can get friction socially when you go, okay, we've all met to watch a film, we've all met to play some board games, we've all met to go for a hike, and one person, and then you can feel like that person's hijacking it. If they go, I actually really need to talk about this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I
you
need
be like,
to not be quiet and listen to the rules of the board game. I just really need to share about what's happening in my life right now. Yeah, completely.
And trying to not hold to the like, but we agreed we'd come here to talk. That stuff is I think it's always good to flip this stuff, to reflect it and go, this is not a children's thing. Some of this stuff is a developmental thing, so it is just about children.
I think we need a code. Sometimes we talk about a code word for like process not product.
We just shout process at each other. Do
Which,
you want to explain that?
Yeah,
because
I will.
that is a good thing that I think people can benefit from.
I'm trying to think about an example. So sometimes, you'll be off somewhere.
It's me, yeah.
Or I'll be off somewhere.
It's me. It's always me. I know it is.
No. And then we cross paths. So say I am with a child holding a bit of wood while they tie some rope to it. I can't think of an actual example. And you might come on and go, what basically, I would, if you're trying to do the thing, I would actually do it this way. Or, do you want me to get some extra rope from the cabin? Or, do you want some help with that, or whatever? And we have this thing where we had a discussion. We're like, okay, it's process, because I do know, like, I know that we could take a shortcut here, or I know that actually this is never going to work. Like it's all about like someone's had an idea, and the only way that, they need to discover it for themselves. They need to kind of go, it isn't going to work, or not even that it's not going to work, but just like we're just doing a thing for the sake of doing a thing. It's not actually because we really need the bird feeder to work right now. I will make sure the bird feeder works later, or do you know what I mean? Yeah. Well,
so quite often it's to do with sight stuff, isn't it? Like putting up swings, or putting up the scramble nets or something, where like walking past and seeing it not being done like efficiently, and it comes from a place of, for me at least, it comes from a place of like wanting to be helpful. Like,
Yeah.
oh, hey, I can be helpful there.
Completely.
Do you want me to come do that bowling? Or, hey, shall I show you a different way? And it's like a little thing that we can say to each other to be like, yeah, don't worry.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let the children get on this swing
exactly.
with this knot.
Exactly that.
But right now,
Yeah.
don't tell me that. Or like, don't come and undercut what's happening.
Exactly that. Or like, we're snipping some holly, and actually we know that the path that really needs clearing of overgrown holly is down there.
Yeah.
But this is what we're doing right now, so that we can look at blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But I feel like we need another code like that for the circle. So like, what is the reason of this? The purpose of this circle? This is a people just want to talk circle, or this is a genuine check-in circle, or this is a, do you know what I mean? And therefore how we're going to approach the management of that circle.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
And how much you hold it or not.
Yeah. And that could be a difficult thing when there's two. If it was a different scenario where our hierarchy was different, I think you'd have one person going, I'm holding the circle. Because you and I are on a level playing field, we can sometimes.
But it would also be the same with like support staff, for example. So, support staff being really helpful and kind of going, oh no, like, we need to be quiet now because we're doing the circle. And then sometimes you might not want them to do that. You might go, actually, I'm not valuing quiet listening in inverted commas here. I'm valuing that everyone talks, even if it's just the person next to them. And
Yeah.
So I think Anyway, next thing.
Okay.
How many?
I'm like halfway through. No.
Maybe this is a 2-part podcast.
It might be a 2-part podcast, which is just me reading the book from start to finish. Okay. I'm going to read quite a long section.
Okay, I'm going to have a drink of water. Listeners, if you hear a glugging noise in the background, I'm going to move away from the microphone. Okay.
The muscles of the eye play an important part in classroom learning. Light passes across the eyeball onto the retina, where 137 million receptors take in information. 95% of the receptors are the rods are for peripheral vision. So 95% of the receptors in your eye are for peripheral vision.
Yep.
Take that in for a minute. While only 5% are the cones for foveal focus, which is what we use for close-up, 2-dimensional paper work. Okay? Yep. Before entering school, 3-dimensional and peripheral vision allows the greatest environmental learning. They integrate visual with the kinesthetic to understand shapes, movement of natural forms, and spatial awareness. So this is from a different bit of the book that I've just remembered, but they will. The really good example was, can I see it? And putting your hand out.
Yes.
Because they need to see with their hands. Because 3-dimensionally, I have to see it. I have to know how to move it. And how adult it is to be like, you can see it. Don't touch it. You can see it. And children are saying, I can't see it because I can only see a 2-dimensional thing. You have the understanding of space and shape in 3 dimensions. I don't. Whoa. Therefore, I need to move it. Interesting.
Whoa.
Okay.
That was like the dead magpie earlier. Oh my god, that was so incredible.
Incredible. Oh. I need to remember to move it. There's a dead magpie, and I just put it to one side, and I need to move it. Okay. They integrate the visual with kinesthetic. When children enter school, they are often expected to quickly develop their foveal focus in order to see small, static, 2-dimensional letters on a page. The transition from 3-dimensional and peripheral to foveal focus is very abrupt and in many cases unnatural. Fucking love it. Before approximately age 7, this is like
all about 7, isn't it?
This is my little jam, because it's like, this is biological reasons that we need to stop doing stuff earlier. Before approximately age 7, the ciliary bodies, muscles that shape the lens of the eye, are short, causing the lens to be thin and elongated. Right? Thin. With the lens in this shape, the incoming image is spread out across the retina, bringing into play maximum rod and cone stimulation. This lens shape easily accommodates 3-dimensional, peripheral, and distance vision. So, children before the age of 7, 3-dimensional, peripheral, and distance vision, great.
Which makes sense.
But their muscles literally cannot do the focusing thing, right? Hang on,
Go on.
I will carry on. At about age 7, these muscles start to lengthen, allowing the lens to round out and more easily focus on the image on the foveal centralis of the retina for natural foveal focus. At 7, the muscles develop. It's not like at 7 they get interested. It's not like at 7 they suddenly have some sort of thing. It's like they don't have a bicep until they're 7, so of course they can't lift things up. Incredible. Children who have looked at books at home may have already acquired some foveal focus in the process, if the process was their choice and free of stress and pressure to perform. However, most children are not physically ready to read at the age of 5, which is now mandated in lots of schools. Then it sort of goes on. We need to look at Singapore. Children were expected to sit still and do seated work by age 3 and 4. Because of this, 85% of their 5-year-olds had myopia and needed glasses.
Wow.
By age 10, almost 100% needed glasses.
Oh my God.
The progressive country that cares greatly about health and learning of its children has now changed the curriculum to include an equal amount of kinesthetic, play and manipulative, to cognitive work in the learning process. We must let go of the belief that reading equals intelligence and allow our children's visual system to develop naturally without the stress of early reading. So I just need to reframe that then. So every time now I see someone under 7 being made to read, their body physically cannot do it. Like they can't. It's like, it would be like holding 2 magnifying glasses up to your eyes and then saying, now read a book. And you're like, but I can't do this. I can't focus. I can't see the, just.
Unless they are choosing to do it, as the book says.
But it says they'll develop some.
Yeah.
Which is the same as like, if kids go to gymnastics lessons, they might have slightly more gymnastic skills before 7, but they're not going to get,
But it's not. They're not saying reading before 7 is wrong and it's going to damage your child. It's saying forcing them to do it.
There is
So
a
if
bit
they
where they're
are-
saying that it can be damaging because if you're forcing stress onto the eyeballs, you're stressing the muscle out before that muscle's ready to develop.
Yeah.
That's where it can be.
Yeah. Which,
So. Yeah. No wonder these children have problems and don't want to read. Their muscles hurt and must be retrained before they can comfortably read. Perhaps as much as 95% of learning occurs through direct, intimate sensory motor experiences with the environment. Formal training may account for only 5% of lifelong learning.
Yeah.
Just as with our sensory system, all of us must develop our own elaborate nerve networks of movement patterns as an action encyclopedia. Thinking is a response to our physical world. It's just this stuff. There's a bit, I don't know if I'll get to it, where she talks about the idea of reading teeth.
Yeah.
Because they also start to come in at about 7, and that how the cultures would change if we talked about, like, have you got your reading teeth yet? Oh, there's no reason you should be reading if you haven't got your reading teeth. And just they're not linked, but mapping those 2 things and going, no, hasn't lost all his reading teeth yet. So, still developing that thing and changing the cultural expectation is massive.
Yeah.
And actually thinking about, what are their bodies developed for before 7? 3-dimensional, peripheral and distance vision. That's forest school in a nutshell.
Yeah.
That is this, the stuff
and
that you
tying in
need.
with schemas and all that kind of stuff, all that way of learning physically, and remembering that children are new in the world.
Yeah.
They're just new in the world. You don't need to start. Yeah.
Okay, so this one links to what we were talking about earlier. Okay, I'm going to read this and see if you can do it. If you're listening to, I'd like you to do it, Wim.
Okay.
If you're listening to the podcast and you've got 2 arms free, like, don't do it if you're driving, please. Okay. So this is hookups. This is one of the, like, brain gym physical movement things. Okay. Stretch your arms out in front of you. Now, with the backs of your hands together and the thumbs pointing down, lift one hand over the other, palms facing, and interlock the fingers. So put your palms together and interlock your fingers. Then roll the lock hands straight down, in and towards the body. That's it. So they eventually rest on the chest with the elbows down. You got it?
Yep.
Okay, that's it.
Yep.
Hold it for a minute. Okay. While in this position, you can rest your tongue on the roof of your mouth behind your teeth. This action stimulates the tongue ligaments which connect to the vestibular system, thus activating RAS for focus and balance. Okay, anyway.
Can I stop now?
You can stop now. Okay.
So what's that meant to do?
When students aged 5 to 15 were sent to me, this is when this person was a counsellor, for being disruptive in the classroom or following a playground fight, they had to sit in hookups for 2 minutes. That's what this is called, hookups.
Mm-hmm.
Sit in there for 2 minutes. This consciously brought attention to the motor cortex of both frontal hemispheres and away from the survival centres of the reptilian brain, thus decreasing adrenaline production. Following the 2 minutes, they were able to see both their own and each other's viewpoints more clearly. None of these students wanted to get in trouble, and they were grateful to have this tool that they could personally use at any time to control their own behaviour.
Oh my days. Right, so we've been talking with our groups. We're doing a lot of MVC work, haven't we? Non-violent communication recently, and talking about trying to give our learners the tools to use in times of conflict. And so we've been doing a mixture of like physical stuff and verbal stuff and behavior stuff, so things like sitting next to each other instead of standing facing each other, all those kind of things. I feel like we should put that in there. It's like, and here is another thing that you can do if you're finding it really hard and you just can't reach an agreement.
Yeah, so I think there's something in here which is like, this person's achieved, and there's a few more of these where they're talking about like it's worth
a try, isn't it?
It's worth a try.
Even if it doesn't work, it's not going to do any harm.
No, true. Let me find... So you can probably hear me flipping through these pages. Furiously! Okay, so... this is a graphic example, so I'm only going to show when this, but you may be able to describe it. This is 2 examples of the same child's writing. Before and after doing 5 minutes of these exercises.
Wow.
So can you describe the top images before?
So the first one has got 2 words, but they've been squished together. It says one day, and then day is like really, really hard. It's
like carved in,
like
isn't
carved into the page.
It looks laboured.
Yeah, it looks painful.
And then 5 minutes after.
5 minutes after is, on Monday we are going to have play day. I have to wear my shorts and a t-shirt and my running shoes. We are going to have lots of fun. Yeah, all easy to read, not carved in.
Not carved in, looks more fluid. And this is first grade, so what's that, 6-year-old? So there's something here which I find really interesting, which is like, and we've come across this stuff before, where you go, I know a sensory thing that will really help. I know a technique that I think will really help my learners. Do I didactically say, as this person did in the book, you've had a fight, you have to sit in the hookup for 2 minutes? Which you run the risk, I think, of developing a negative connotation with that exercise. Or do you let a learner, because the flip side is that you go, I really know, but I can't, you go so hands off that you go, I can only show it to you, and if you want to do it, that's great, but if you don't, that's your choice. I wonder if the balance is that you once or twice go didactically, I just need you to try this. Or you catch them when the iron's cold and go, let's try this thing.
That's what my suggestion would be. It's like it's a thing, like we do loads of these things in morning circle, don't we? It's like, hey, here's a thing, here's a fun thing. Yeah. And you get everyone, like a game. So you're playing at this, going, can you all do this?
I got them all sniffing a tree.
Yeah. And then while they're in there, you go, the interesting thing about this is I was reading about it, and it actually connects these 2 halves of our brain together and makes us feel calmer. So it might be something that we wanna try. And then later on, you could go, hey, let's do that thing, and you do it too. And obviously, you cannot force them to do it. That's not forest school, is it? To go, you need to do it. It's your punishment. But the fact that you've done it in a playful way with everybody, not singling somebody out, and then you're doing it too in that moment of, I feel a bit stressed out. I'm gonna do that. Let's do that thing.
Yeah. And you can frame stuff like this as like, I've seen it framed in the past as like, whatever makes it sort of palatable, whether that's, I know a secret body hack, I know a magic trick that fixes my brain, I know a secret move that only ninjas do to stretch. Shall I do the ninja stretch? Because it makes their brains real fast. Like, do you want to fucking do the ninja thing? Let's do the fucking ninja thing. Like...
That's exactly how Lewis speaks to young people, by the way. If you were wondering, that is it. It's just effing and jeffing all day long. It just works miracles, though. It's amazing. The
Let's do
results,
fucking ninjas!
the outcomes are just fantastic. Ofsted love it as well. When they came to inspect the kindergarten, they really made it.
Vocabulary is excellent.
I'm joking.
They hated it. No, I'm joking. Okay.
Oh God.
Okay.
I don't know if I can take much more of it.
Okay,
Can you just do one more? Because
I could do one more.
I don't know about you, but my brain is like, it's not that I'm bored. I'm the opposite of bored. I need time to go and process.
I know.
These
So
things.
I'm going to do one more, and then I'm done, and we can talk.
Then do I get to play End User on my phone?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Who are Sosoh?
Who are Sosoh?
Sosoh. SOSOH.
Okay.
Okay. What do I mean by stressed out, survival orientated
Humans.
humans?
It says humans.
I don't know. I am referring to non-integrated, lopsided brain functioning, a tendency to operate reflexively and or reactively from survival centres in the brainstem and the sympathetic nervous system. How does stress fit into the picture? Stress from various environmental, developmental, family and social influences is a trigger setting off events in the nervous system that produce and regulate survival-orientated behaviour. We certainly know that chronic exposure to stress inhibits full brain development and learning. So this is... Oh, it does say humans, sorry. This is a really interesting way of viewing a range of what might come under the umbrella of neurodiversity. In that, I think one of the things that people find difficult about neurodiversity, like from the outside learning about, I'll explain that badly, but okay, great, is that it can feel like everybody tells you like this is the strategy to use, and it always is undercut with, but not everyone will need that. This is the thing. This is the framework to look at it through. Why don't you look at it through there like this? Why don't you look at it through like this? Which is, it can be draining. I really like the idea of just grouping lots of behaviour, neurodiverse or not, as that is a stress-induced, survival-orientated behaviour. That is to do with you are stressed out about your social situation and you've gone into survival mode, or this physical sensation is stressing you out, and so you just I can't. I'm not explaining myself very well here.
I think I know what you're saying. It's a
broad umbrella which I find really useful as a framework.
What am I right in thinking? So trauma or like stress-related behaviour is not the same as neurodiversity.
No.
They are different things. You can be autistic and not be, acting like trauma is a separate thing. And if you're autistic, for example, you probably have experienced more traumatic life experiences because of the way the world is set up. But it is not. But your behaviour that might be stemming from trauma is not necessarily autistic. Autistic behaviour. You are autistic, and you also have had experienced trauma. They are separate things, but I think what you're trying to say is that if you are viewing behaviour, that is exhibited by everybody in times of stress, and if you are neurodivergent, you may be experiencing stressful situations more often in our world currently, or in a lot of environments, than you might if you were neurotypical. Then you can just, rather than trying to analyse and go, oh, it's because that person is ADHD, or it's because that person's autistic, you're showing stress behaviour, and it doesn't at the moment. It's about just helping you with that stress-related response. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's part of what I'm trying to say. And actually, as I listened to you saying that, I clarified something else, which is I think it gives me a framework which, so like traditional, in air quotes here, traditional teaching. I'm not tarring everyone with the same brush. Has like, you see a lot of stuff about like when negative behaviour presents, when there is a negative, and like framing things as stressed out survival behaviors takes away judgment. And that's what I like about it, because that might also be somebody somebody playing princesses, and on the you know, turns on a sixpence, that's the phrase I'm looking for, and suddenly goes, "You're a stupid princess," and I hate that, right? And like, and suddenly kicks off, right? And rather than trying to underpin that and go like, "Were they unhappy with the game? Were they?" You just go, "They got stressed out. They went into survival mode, and so they attacked." Or, you know, there's an argument over a resource. Who's got the football? There's an argument over that. That's my stick, and I've lost it, and I'm really deeply upset by that. It for me groups behavior that challenges, or groups like stressed behaviors, in a non-judgmental way of just going, your priorities became survival. You're in a high stress situation,
and that can present in a few different ways, but that's what's going on. And
that everybody's view on survival is different. And that might be where I was trying to include the neurodiversity element of like, what do you need to survive is different for different people. That's where I think I was going with that thing of like, there's not a judgment here. It's just you got stressed and wanted to survive. And, you know, end of. This is, you know, I'm closing the book now. I'm closing the book.
That kind of links to the book that I have just lent you, which can I have back sometime, about the hidden chimp.
Yes.
The hidden chimp thing, because that's that whole argument, which is, there you've got your survival bit, and sometimes, you know, it's there for a good reason. It was there to protect you, and you want to say thank you to that thing, but actually it gets out of hand sometimes, and it's all about. And so this book, is it actually called The Hidden Chimp?
Yes, because in air quotes, the grown-up version is the chimp paradox, which I'm sure people will have heard of. It's a very famous book.
So Hidden Chimp is like the kids' work,
and it is very well laid out. I will say that. So I'm going to put this down so you can hear it clicking. It is nicely laid out. It's the most kid-friendly book I've seen of a big subject. When I opened it, I thought it was going to be one of those books that's for parents, then you go and explain it to your kids. But it is a book it's like a workbook, isn't it? It's like an exercise book. You just do it with your, what's your monkey's name? And what does your monkey do? It's playful, and it's sometimes shy, and it's, you know, it's very good. I recommend people look at it.
So that's like a kind of self-knowledge, self-discovery thing. So you're kind of talking about it as a, you know, as a practitioner looking upon behaviour. This is a kind of book for children and young people to go on a bit of a learning about themselves and why this bit of their brain might behave in certain ways sometimes, and then how you can help it and look after it, you know. I think it's quite nice.
I would recommend this book. I would so thoroughly recommend this book.
Read it.
I'm at the point where I'm happy to give it to you.
Okay. It does sound like one of those things that I struggle with memory. Personally, I find myself beginning a story to another adult and go, oh, well, that's really interesting, because actually the science shows that there's a thing about the thing I can't actually remember it now, but it's really important. So I wish I could like photocopy it and stamp it into my brain, but sounds like, as we were saying at the beginning, it kind of backs up and validates all those like little spidey sense moments that you have in forest school, where you're like, this is so flipping important. Like, look, all the joy that you get from watching a particular type of play, and you can't really put it into words, but you just know it's amazingly valuable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do.
You just get that, like,
actually, that's the word. That's the word that's here. So, like, this book is incredible at explaining what's going on, and then I think that's my bugbear with that academic thing. It slightly misappropriates value. So I think it slightly moves. It's like, this is incredible because their skin receptors are going through this thing, and they're going through this change, and so they're learning to do this thing, which is great for writing. It like undercuts the value for me. It like, I want the value. I think the value is, and so you're a physically competent human, and so you have, you know,
you have realised a bit more of your potential.
But it's not like you can separate it. That's the thing that frustrates me. Is like, this physical type of learning, it doesn't matter if you go and become, you know, if these learners become politicians or plumbers or like teachers, or, you know, they go build wells in Africa or something, they still have to have a body. And why would you devalue the body learning to be like, oh yeah, that's important for when you're a kid so you can learn to read, rather than like, that's important because you live in a fucking body. And like,
and how do you backtrack from an education, viewpoint that we're at now to like, because it feels like backtracking, and why is that wrong? Why do I use that word? Why did that word spring to mind where it's like, oh, it might have been in the old days?
is it an industrial revolution thing?
No, because do you know what? I was thinking, for some reason, I had a real strong flashback this week about my primary school hall. And I don't know why, but I suddenly was transported to like the smell of the hall, what the surface of the floor looked like, and I took myself on a little imaginary journey.
High polished floor.
Yeah, absolutely yes. To the point where I just polished my shoes and I left marks all over it, and I felt so awful. Oh my god! But yeah, and then I started going, oh my god, we had all this, like, I don't know if your school had this, all this fold out
apparatus. Oh, we're getting out the apparatus today.
And I was like, god, when was my school built? So it had like a Victorian bit, but this hall I think was probably late 60s, early 70s.
Right.
And all of that shemizzle is built in. Like, it all is on like wheels in the ceiling, and you've got rope ladders, and you've got ropes, and like the horse comes out, and climbing things. Yeah. So whoever built and designed that school had factored in that as like, this is important. Whereas now, PE, and also PE was done by the class teacher as part of your day. That's
a very primary school way of doing
not
things.
Not anymore.
No?
So now my kids, school, like, I thought about the cost, like that. I was like, flipping out, all that equipment must have cost thousands of pounds to install all of that, and make it so that it's really robust enough. It's not a frivolous purchase. To use for years, and it's like, it's in the design of the school, which definitely shows you a value that's being put on those things. It's not like, oh, that costs too much, or we'll just like get a couple of like cheap trampolines and do that, or it's like, that was viewed as being important enough to build it into a new school building and to pay for it and to make it last and all the rest of it. And the teacher did that as part of the school day, whereas now, at my kids' school, PE is outsourced. So there's a PE specialist who comes in on Thursdays and Fridays and does PE with each of the classes in turn on the playground, and brings all the equipment.
Okay.
And the fact that school budgets won't, it would be insane. Can you imagine like being in the school now and then the head teacher going, we're spending this massive budget on installing all the apparatus so that it all folds out of the ceiling in the school hall. Like, I can't even imagine that being it would be an absolute shitstorm. Everyone would be like, what the hell were you, what's that for? And that's wrong.
Yeah.
I don't think it is an industrial revolution thing. I think it's a fashion thing.
Well, I wonder if there's also something there about, there's a move towards physical education being overtly or discreetly when you get companies coming in to do things, my experience, at least, as the only experience I can talk from, is it's football coach, it's rugby coach, it's whatever coach. It's like a specific sport. We're getting in 8 weeks of sport coach. We're getting in 8 weeks of thingy, and there's team games, there's team bonding, it's community, but it does kind of instill something that physical learning is maybe competitive, or maybe physical development is important if you're the best at it, or if you're quite good at it.
You're a specialist in it.
But physical learning is not something to be done. I'd be really interested to go and see a school where yoga is embedded into the school, and I'm sure they exist. That like non-competitive physical development is sometimes viewed differently and viewed in a which is just it's an interesting difference, isn't it? Where I would say physical development at Forest School is very non-competitive for the most part. We do, we do chasing games, we do, but we work very hard with our games to not have like winners and losers. We don't have games where it's like you're out when you get caught. We do these sorts of things.
Highly recommend that, by the way. If anyone is playing a lot of games where you get caught out and explosions happen, just stop doing it.
Emotional explosions, you mean?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Well, just that idea of like, I don't know, because
have you seen that meme doing the rounds of instead of expecting children to be resilient or trying to build children's resilience. How about you build a world that's less traumatic? And I've just seen that shared quite a few times, and it's really resonated and gone, yes. What, why are you going, oh, they need to learn how to lose? Do they really? If it's like making them upset to the point where they're really like...
How else will the government control them if they're not used to losing? Do you know what I said to someone the other day? I was talking about, I went, I don't have a retirement plan. My plan is based entirely on every teenager I know is a raving socialist. In Gen Z, as far as I can tell, proper socialists. So my hope is that by the time I'm retiring, Gen Z will be in government, and there'll be some sort of
snowflakes.
Socialist.
The snowflake government.
No, I'm this. No, millennials like me are snowflakes.
Oh, okay.
So we'll be there. We'll be there going, I demand avocado toast in my retirement plan. I couldn't afford a house because I buy avocado toast.
But then, okay, so are Gen Z the woke people?
Yeah,
Gen
Z's
like,
younger than me.
Avocados are too bad for the environment. You can't have those.
No, avocados,
Sorry.
you mean. Be lentils. Be my lentil gruel.
Oh,
Socialist lentil gruel.
Lovely. I'm not in the mood to play end user now. I'm too
Broken your brain.
Yeah.
Well, I would recommend the book. It's very chunked up into like, you don't have to. It's not linear, so you don't have to go, oh, and this bit builds on this bit, and this bit builds on this bit. It's called Smart Moves: Why Learning is Not All in Your Head, by Carla Hannaford.
Cool. And there's a book that's just coming out now. So, it's called Brain Body Parenting by Mona Delahook, PhD, and I think it might be a similar vibe. Lots of interoception stuff. So I wonder if that might be worth a read.
Yeah.
Instead or as well as.
Sounds like it. Right, let's not leave it so long till the next one.
Next week.
Okay.
What should we talk about?
Don't know.
Biscuits.
Biscuits. Love it.
Biscuits and squirrels.
That'll do. Bye.
Bye.